I ain't taking notes from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to BSML Celtics. And the Celtics just lost Game 3 to the Miami Heat, 109-103. Bam Adebayo had 31 points. This was really his first great game in the series. And there's a lot to talk about in this game, as there was a lot that happened in this game. I don't know, Seamus. Initial thoughts?
For me, I don't take too much sorrow in this game because of how this game started. I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, the Celtics, you said on your story, they were handed this game on a silver platter down the stretch. And while that may be true, they started this game out horrendously. And honestly, throughout the ball game, I'm not sure they deserved to win this game, of course, as the final score indicates. But early on in the game, it was the turnovers. All night long, it was the turnovers for the Celtics and Miami's ability to run and, of course, create points off those turnovers as well. And for the Celtics to go down 26 points early in this game was just inexcusable. It's inexcusable to play that way on your home floor, coming back in Game 3 after grabbing all the momentum in the series, in Game 2, tying the series up 1-1 on Miami's home court. Plus, I look at, too, Smart and Jason Tatum, it looked like they came back injuries that, honestly, if you look at both of them, it looked like Marcus Smart broke his leg at first, and it looked like Jason Tatum might have separated his shoulder, and I really didn't expect either of them to be back tonight, yet they were, whereas Jimmy Butler, that was a surprise at halftime, him going out for the rest of the game, and for the Heat to pull that one out on the road, very resilient win for them, and we all know they're a very good ball club as well, and they're here in the Eastern Conference Finals, of course, which means, that you got to be pretty good to make it to this point. But hats off to them for winning this game tonight in resilient fashion, but for the Celtics, there were just too many problems for this team, specifically in the first half, but also down the stretch when they could have taken this game, where you just look at it and go, it just wasn't their night. They didn't execute to the level in which we're used to seeing them execute at, and they didn't make enough stops down the stretch, and they just had way too many turnovers. That was really the story of the night. You cannot turn the ball over as many times as they did. I believe 22 or 23 times, depending on what the final number was there. That's just way too many times in the Eastern Conference Finals to expect to win a game like this, against a team like the Miami Heat. But we can talk so much more about this game. But for now, I try not to take too much out of this. You mentioned Game 5 in Milwaukee, or sorry, not in Milwaukee, but against Milwaukee. I think that loss personally was worse just because we went on 2, and at that point, it to win on the road to keep our season alive. Whereas now, you just have to grab that second home game now in Game 4 if you're the Celtics, and all of a sudden the series is tied up, and you just have to win another game in Miami sometime later on down the line. But for now, bad Celtics loss for sure for what happened down the stretch, but the play tonight, they just didn't deserve to win this game.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like I said earlier, I thought the Celtics were gift wrapped to this game. Like, I legitimately thought with everything that happened, with all of the free throws they shot, what did they shoot? Almost 30? They almost shot 30 free throws. Jaylen Brown dropped 40. Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart, both of them got hurt. Both of them came back looking like Paul Pierce style comebacks.
Both of them.
Everything was working. Everything was working for the Celtics. They were home. The crowd was going crazy. Everything seemed to be working in their favor. And they couldn't get out of their own way. 24 turnovers. I said this before.
That's even higher than I've said.
That's even higher than what you said.
It's crazy.
You can't turn the ball over 24 times and expect to win the game. It doesn't matter what happens. And it's tough to say, and I don't want to say this, I don't want to sound mean, but when Jimmy Butler went down, the Celtics should have won this game. Jimmy Butler was their only source of offense in the first two games, it felt like. And when he went down, I felt like it was the perfect time for the Celtics to strike. And when I knew that they lost this game was the fact that they ended the third quarter and they were still down by 15. They were down at halftime by 15. Everything that happened in that third quarter, and they were still down by 15. Hats off to the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat played an amazing game tonight. They didn't let anything faze them. Jimmy Butler got hurt. Tyler Hero didn't look healthy. And Bam Adebayo stepped up huge. So I can't say anything bad about Miami. Miami had an amazing game, and they deserve to win this game because, frankly, it just felt like the Celtics didn't want to win this game. I don't know. I'm not trying to overreact too much because, like you said, Game 5 versus Milwaukee, it was a heartbreaking loss. I went to that game. I know. I had to drive an hour home after that. It was not a good experience, in my opinion, but it's just tough right now, man. It's tough. Maybe I'm just taking this a little harder, but it's tough. So, Game 4 on Monday, back in the Garden. They just lose this game the way they lost it, 24 turnovers. There's obviously a lot up in the air right now. You don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy Butler. You don't know what's going to happen with Tyler Hero. You don't know what's going to happen with Robert Williams, who was also out in this game. What do you see the Celtics needing to do in Game 4 to tie the series going back to Miami?
Well, obviously, limit turnovers. You saw the trend in this series so far, and really the whole season for the Celtics, and really any team in the NBA, if you just look on down the line. If you turn the ball over and give points in transition to your opponent, you are both shooting yourself in the foot and gifting your opponent, because not only are you taking away offensive possessions from yourself, but you're giving offensive possessions and easy ones at that in transition to your opponent. And the way the Celtics did that tonight, Mark Jackson said it, you cannot win that way whatsoever. But also going into Game 2, the Celtics had to find out a way to create more easy opportunities and better opportunities for Jason Tatum. And that's partially on Ime Udoka and the whole team getting him better opportunities, but it's also on Jason Tatum. They were showing that little highlight film of him tonight being bodied by PJ Tucker and multiple defenders on Miami, and them being really physical with him. And that video really reminded me of what we did with Kevin Durant in the Nets series. And now it's happening to us with Jason Tatum, and ultimately we have to find a way to get him open looks and, of course, get him the ball on one-on-one isolation attempts in which he is favorable, against Tyler Hero, against Kyle Lowry, guards like that, against Gabe Vincent, all guys like that. You want to get him mismatches like that and let him cook. And there just weren't too many opportunities like that for Tatum tonight. They were playing deny. And when he did get the ball, he was defended by PJ Tucker or somebody of his size or of his stature, and he just didn't find great success in finding the rim. And also, too, with Jason Tatum, I felt as if he wasn't as aggressive as he needed to be at times. I kind of already mentioned that as well in terms of getting his shot, but also getting to the rim. We've seen this so many times. The Celtics, once they fall away from going towards the rim and breaking down the defense, that can be a little bit of their demise. But going into Game 2, it's going to have to be the turnovers, and it's going to have to be the shooting overall with the team as well. Look at the three-point shooting. Just wasn't the same tonight as it was in Game 2. Game 2 was more of a historic performance, per se, from the Celtics and just how efficient they were from the field in that game. But ultimately, they have to be better in that regard moving forward. So the turnovers, the shooting, and also getting Tatum easier looks in Game 3 and also getting Tatum going. We had Brown going tonight, but we all know if Jason Tatum is on his game and Jaylen Brown can give you 20 to 25 points, that's really in the range in which you want the Celtics at. You don't want, obviously, Brown 40 points and Tatum. How many did he have tonight? It felt like he
10.
had
10.
He had 10. Wow, I was going to say it felt like he had either 10 or 12 points. That's insane. You can't have 10 points if you're going to be a superstar in this league in a playoff game like this. So moving forward, I do expect him to be better, but tonight was not a good showing for Tatum and the Celts overall.
Yeah, and, I said this in my own video on TikTok right before this series started. Jason Tatum can't have 10-point games like he did in Game 3 versus Milwaukee. And now it's Game 3 in Miami. and it's another 10-point game on super bad efficiency. And like we said, all credit to PJ Tucker for playing super well on Tatum, and credit to the Miami Heat defense. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, if Tatum is not doing well on offense, the Celtics offense overall can't be at the highest level that it can be. If Jason Tatum scores even a little more than 10 points, if he hits one or two more shots, the Celtics have a better chance of taking this game instead of, ending up losing the way that they ended up losing. Because it was a 1-point game in the fourth quarter, as crazy as that sounds. And the Celtics looked super resilient, and it looked like it was all going their way. But it just felt like if they could hit a couple more shots and they just would stop turning the ball over, they had a chance to win this game. But we move forward, and we were thinking about talking about Robert Williams on the last show, but we won, so I guess it didn't really matter too much. Do you have concerns about Robert Williams? Because, when it came to games 1 and 2, it felt like he was able to limit Bam Adebayo's effect on the game, as we saw. And then tonight, credit to Eric Spoelstra and the Heat for getting him, favorable matchups. But I don't know. It just felt like one of those things where Bam Adebayo could literally do whatever he wanted to do. And it felt like something that Robert Williams would have been able to defend. So how concerned are you about Robert Williams moving forward?
Well, last summer, going back to the debate on whether or not the Celtics should give him an extension, which at the time I think most agreed that they should give him the extension. However, the questions on why you wouldn't give him the extension were certainly there. And one of those questions was, can he stay healthy? Because we saw in his rookie year, he missed a whole bunch of time that year. Second year, does the same exact thing. And then his third year, he doesn't really get the minutes in which we expect him to get. Then later on, he misses time. And then, of course, come playoff time against the Brooklyn Nets, he's nowhere to be found in those last 3 games. And the question is always, well, can you have Robert Williams out there as your starting center consistently? Can you consistently to be healthy? And so far in these playoffs, that answer is no. That answer is simply no. For as incredible as Rob is on the floor, which the Celtics need him on the floor, this is why this is such a problem. But to have him, you actually need him on the floor. You need him playing ball games. Right now, he is in the midst of missing, I believe, 5 of the last 7 Celtics playoff games. And you go back, it goes all the way back to Game 3 against Milwaukee. He missed Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7 against Milwaukee. And, of course, he missed tonight's game in games the Heat, in which we lost by only 6 points. And a game, like you mentioned, Bam Adebayo dominated and scored 31 points in. I hate the people that sit back sometimes. I think I heard this maybe on ESPN, which nobody should put any stock in what they say on ESPN unless you're listening to like JJ Redick or somebody like that. However, somebody mentioned, Robert Williams is out, shouldn't affect them too much. They still have Al Horford, they still have Daniel Tice. Daniel Tice, of course, has been solid when coming in for Williams this year, but they're not Robert Williams, and they do not have the same impact as a shot blocker on the back end as Robert Williams does, and, of course, as versatile defenders on the perimeter. Robert Williams can do so much on the defensive end of the floor that you saw tonight. It definitely looked like I was way, way more comfortable going towards the rim and scoring at the rim. And I don't have the rebounding numbers in front of me, but it didn't feel like the Celtics had a good advantage on the boards either. It really felt like Miami, it might have been even at the end of the night, and they were even at halftime, but it felt like Miami certainly had more of a presence than they did in games 1 and 2 in that regard. And that's really telling when you don't have Robert Williams out there. And we've seen that all season long. When we're missing Robert Williams, we're missing an integral part of the team, especially, your starting center. Think about the center spot. It's changed drastically over the years. But you look at the last few championships, the center role has played a big role in the last couple of championships, no matter whether it's a max center or not. Those guys, you need those guys at the end of the day on the back end as shot blockers, as versatile defenders, and, of course, lob catchers like a Rob Williams is, and guys you can run the pick and roll with. You need those guys in the playoffs ultimately. And to not have Robert Williams out there tonight, and, of course, before games 1 and 2 in this series, that entire back end of that Milwaukee series, it's very in a certain sense. We all know how important Rob is, but if you cannot have him out there on the floor, that just becomes a very big concern for the Celtics.
Yeah. And I'm well aware that he had surgery. This meniscus surgery, meniscus tear, it's no joke. Like, it's something that you have to be cautious with. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how he feels for Game 4. And if he plays in Game 4 and if he's healthy and he plays the way that he played in Game 1 and 2, hopefully the Celtics can bounce back. So let's move on to something a little more positive. We're going to move on to our player spotlight. And tonight's player spotlight is Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown had 40 points tonight, 9 rebounds on 14 of 20 shooting. This was the most points that Jaylen Brown has ever scored in a playoff game. So congratulations to Jaylen Brown. You played a hell of a game. It was just kind of tough. And how do you feel about Jaylen Brown's performance tonight?
Well, you look at his stat line there, 14 of 20. When you score 40 points on 20 shots, you're doing something pretty good and pretty efficient. And that was Jaylen Brown tonight. He really felt like the only Celtic that really had the hot hand. I believe Al Horford.
Al Horford had 20 tonight, yeah.
Yeah, Al Horford was very good from the field tonight. Marcus Smart, 6 of 11. He was pretty efficient as well, 16 points for him. And we all know he missed that stint in the third quarter when he went down with his ankle injury. But Jaylen Brown, I mean, he was the best Celtics player out there on the floor today offensively. And this is one of those nights where, Jaylen Brown, it's great that he scores 40 points, but this is not really the night in which Tatum has 10, Daniel Tice has 1 as a starter, Grant Williams has 10, Derek White has 0, Pritchard has 3, and then you have Jaylen Brown, he has 40, and he makes up nearly half of your points. Jaylen Brown, he's a really good player and can be a really good player with the ball in his hands, but he is more of an isolation-oriented scorer. He's not as much of a playmaker as Tatum. So when the ball is in his hands a lot, like it was tonight, sometimes that can take just a little bit off your offense when you know that it's going to be Brown handling the ball rather than Tatum, who you're just denying and also holding to 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists on 3 of 14 shooting. So, that's just one of those nights. Great performance by Jaylen Brown. Really shows what he can do as an individual player. But when the Celtics have to play this way through one guy and it's not Jason Tatum, that's kind of a concern. But ultimately, I don't see this trend continuing moving forward with them having to rely so heavily on Jaylen Brown in a game like this. I think moving forward, we'll see adjustments, of course, out of the team. I mean, the team was down 26 points at one point tonight and really had a chance to win this game and really just blew it down the stretch. But Jaylen Brown, for what he did tonight, great game, but unfortunately, Celtics lost. So you can't really say too much about it.
Yeah, and I know I said I was going to try to move on to a positive here, but as much as I love Jaylen Brown for dropping 40 and 9, and he had a super efficient night, and he's been pretty solid after not having a great performance in Game 1. But 7 turnovers. That's kind of the killer right there. And I think Tatum had 6 turnovers as well. And when your 2 superstars turn the ball over 13 times, it's kind of rough. And, I know Jaylen Brown's not really known for his ball handling skills, but at the same time, 7 turnovers, whatever. We're over the turnover thing. Let's move on here to something else. As we know, Jimmy Butler got hurt. Tyler Hero didn't look great. Robert Williams is out. I know we just talked about a little bit what the Celtics need to do with Game 4. What is your prediction for Game 4, personally? What do you think is going to happen, depending on whatever happens? Because obviously we don't know what's going to happen in the series because everything is different. So if you had to make a guess on what happens in Game 4, what do you expect?
Well, we have to see who's available for Game 4 first because there are so many injuries up in the air right now. You have Jimmy Butler, you have Tyler Hero, you have Jason Tatum to a certain extent, you have Marcus Smart as well. That ankle is not going to feel good in the morning. And then you have Robert Williams. Of course, is he going to come back? You saw the impact of him being out tonight. And, of course, coming into this game, P.J. Tucker, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, And I believe Gabe Vincent all left them questionable coming into today. And we all know a full NBA game of basketball can really take a toll on one's body. So there's so many players so far where they are huge impact rotate players in which their status is just completely up in the air. So moving forward, it's really hard to gauge what game 4 will really look like and who's available. But assuming that all these guys are available, hopefully PJ Tucker and Kyle Lowry don't have a turn back the clock type of game like they did tonight. I mean, those two guys were questionable, like I mentioned, coming into today. And they could have not played in this game entirely for the Miami Heat, yet they ended up being outside of Bam Adebayo, the two biggest players on the Heat tonight. And just to look at their stat lines real quick, PJ Tucker, he was just phenomenal defensively tonight. And offensively, you look at his stat line, 16 points. That's way above his standards. I believe he averages 7 or 8 a game. I might be wrong on that. 7 rebounds, 5 of 10 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. So three-pointers from PJ Tucker. And then you go on to Kyle Lowry, 11 points, 6 assists from him, 4 of 11. Didn't have the best night offensively, but certainly I felt like added another complexity to their offense as a playmaker. You know, six assists is pretty good for him tonight. And, of course, he had that huge play down the stretch where the Celtics completely fell asleep and he just stole the ball. I believe he passed it to Bam Adebayo, and that was really the game from there on. But Kyle Lowry, he's going to be a thorn in the Celtics side as long as he's playing in the series moving forward. We don't know, what that hamstring is going to be like for him moving forward. But if he does play, he's going to be a thorn in the side for them both as a defender. He's very pesky and can draw a lot of on that end and really get under guys' skin. And, of course, offensively, he's just a calm presence that can hit shots from the outside, facilitate for others, and be a leader on that end of the floor. So having him back is so huge for the Miami Heat, and we saw him, Kyle Lowry, and his impact along with PJ Tucker's impact tonight. And hopefully moving forward for the Celtics, those two guys do not make as big of an impact as they did tonight, because over the offseason, looked at the Miami Heat, who were the two biggest additions. It was Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker. Well, we're now coming off a playoff game in which those two guys, without Jimmy Butler out there, really beat us tonight, along with Bam Adebayo, of course. So moving forward, the Celtics, they just can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be wrapping up a little early tonight. It is just me and Seamus tonight. And honestly, there's not really a lot to talk about, to be honest. If I'm being 100% honest with you, there's really not much to talk about outside of what we've been talking about before. If I had to say something about Game 4, I think Jason Tatum has to step up. I think, granted, like I say this all the time, the Heat played great defense on Tatum. PJ Tucker played great defense on Tatum. They got to find a way to get Tatum involved. He has to be the one that's, scoring 40. He's got to be the one that's shooting efficiently. He just has to find a way to get going, and it probably needs to last throughout the entire game. So those are my thoughts on Game 4. Seamus, any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
This game felt like the most WWE NBA game that I've ever seen. I mean, it was just the most insane thing that I've ever seen. We go down 26 points. The Celtics go down 26. Then they go on a 10-0 run before halftime and cut it to 15 at one point going into halftime. And then we come out into the second half. Jimmy Butler just goes out of the game. He's not coming back at all. And, of course, we had Kyle Lowry, too. He went to the locker room earlier in the game. We were like, oh, is he going to be okay? Turns out he's just working on his hamstring back there. But at halftime, Jimmy Butler goes out. And then minutes into the third quarter, Marcus Smart, it looks like he broke his ankle out there. I'm sitting here. I was doing halftime live. I was sitting there thinking he might be out for the series if this is a legitimate injury. That was not a good injury at all. He comes out onto the floor. He's back all of a sudden. And then down the stretch, Tatum gets hurt. It looks like he separates his shoulder. And then he comes back Paul Pierce style as well. And then, of course, the Celtics, they have a chance to win this game. And down the stretch, make multiple boneheaded plays leading to just one of the most inexcusable plays of the night where I believe it was Marcus Smart and Grant Williams. Grant Williams inbounded in the ball. Marcus Smart wasn't really paying attention. And Kyle Lowry stole that ball, laid it up and in, and then he's doing a celebration, of course, going crazy on our home floor. which, of course, if anybody's watched the Celtics in the past, they know when Kyle Lowry was a Raptor, he was kind of a Celtics killer at times. So just to have all of those events happen in one game tonight was it was crazy. It was just mind-boggling to a certain extent. But also the Marcus Smart 3. Got to shout out that I texted you guys. I had chills when he wanted to take that 3 because it was like he just came back on the floor. He hadn't even made it yet, and I just had chills because
I know I felt it. I felt it. Well, I guess if I do have to, I'm going to try to end off with a positive here. The Boston Celtics have been down in these playoffs before. They were down to Milwaukee 2-1. They were down to Milwaukee 3-2. And they've shown that they can be resilient with their backs against the wall and being down in the playoff series. So, best case scenario, tomorrow the Celtics go out, they play the game that they know how to play, and they take the victory, hopefully, in Game 4 over the Miami Heat to tie the series back at 2 heading back to Miami. So, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. That's Seamus. I'm Ian. I will see you guys next time. Make sure you guys subscribe to BSML Celtics. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our own separate pages. Shout out to Justin and Rob. They couldn't make it tonight. Hopefully Rob can get out of Boston tonight. And
he probably had quite the night.
He probably had quite the interesting night. Thank you, everybody, for watching again. Have a good night. We'll see you guys on Monday when the Celtics play Game 4.